ports and from a real estate standpoint regarding dry ports and inland terminals. And I think the term dry port is a bit of a misnomer because they're actually inland terminals. There are many dry ports which happen to be wet. So in this recovery that we're in, there are numerous challenges that ports face: economic and functional obsolescence of their port real estate, especially for city ports that have cities encroaching, and the tax base could, by the city's viewpoint, be better served with shopping centers, hotels, office buildings, cleaner, supposedly, than the port. Land constraints, lack of capital to modernize and expand the port, inadequate supply chains in emerging markets behind the port. The biggest bottleneck you'll find in emerging markets are behind the port. In Brazil, for example, that's the biggest challenge, where the port's capacity cannot be met by the lack of rail and the current road infrastructure. And then the need for ports to rationalize their assets from a financial return standpoint. I'm going to come up with a few slides that's going to give you the reason why ports now need to look further inland, and they have to do that for survival. And these are certain things that are impacting them: ship and vessel size, and the economics behind the big ships, the port logistics, supply chain compression, regionalization of ports, and I'm talking about basically gateway ports, where they've gone from a simple sea-land interface into a regional node within that supply chain and growth corridor, and the world's infrastructure needs. Here is a 20-year view. Just 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 48% of cargo was containerized. By 2020, it's expected to be 72%. Now, this impact already is being felt, and certainly is being felt at the port through a lack of capacity, throughput, and velocity. World TEU throughput, look at the growth, 1.1 billion in 9 years from now. Now, this is going to have to be processed somewhere, and in developed countries where you've got ports that are going to remain where they are because greenfield and brownfield development is increasingly difficult to come by, and in emerging markets where the infrastructure has to be leveraged, something's going to have to give, something's going to have to produce a very fast processing of containers. And then container ships hitting 20,000 TEU in size. Now, the rationalization of the global fleet is a tremendous increase in the average size of the fleet, which requires more port side capacity. But what people don't realize, it requires a tremendous amount of warehousing capacity as well behind the port through the growth corridor. A tremendous amount of warehousing capacity. We're talking distribution centers of 100,000 square meters in a second-tiered city in the vicinity of maybe 15, 20 million square feet or 2 million square meters. And here's a container ship order book. And just the only thing you need to notice here is right here. 40% of the order book is in excess of 10,000 TEUs. Now, it's relatively easy to design, build, and finance ever bigger ships. It's very difficult for ports to keep up with that technology, because the capital requirements and the land constraints that ports face are considerably larger than the challenges faced by shipping lines, naval architects, and shipping banks. And these large ships, basically, to work, their reach into the hinterland needs to be exponentially large. Second point, they can only call on 2 or 3 ports of call because they need to be constantly moving. This fact is changing the whole dynamics of the ports, or the port landscape in the world today. And then, of course, the infrastructure at the quayside. Now, here is the average throughput per terminal. It's an estimate. 800,000 TEUs globally, and look at them in Southeast Asia, Far East, and the Middle East. Now, this is tremendous processing capabilities. And then here you have South America at 475, North America at 575. A lot of this is labor-related at this point, and a lot of this is not labor-related, and also automation that they're taking advantage of. So these keyline benchmarks, capacity benchmarks, are influenced by the traffic mix, size of terminal, dedicated or common user terminal. The key message, though, is that existing ports will need to increase capacity and throughput using the same footprint of land. So if you dedicate that footprint to velocity and throughput, everything else has to go somewhere else and not at the port. Here's TEU per meter of quay. You're getting basically the same relationship. And the message, again, is where you're going to put different types of services and activities that are no longer economically feasible at the quayside. Stripping and stuffing containers doesn't generate the kind of revenue that the value of the port land it commands. Mind you, in the United States, port or port-related real estate has been going for anywhere from $400,000 an acre in a very small port to a sale of $1.8 million an acre, which is a little less than half a hectare, in New York, New Jersey. Many ports don't realize the value of their real estate. But their real estate is the largest asset on their balance sheet, and today it needs to be their most strategic asset. And this is one of the reasons why. So why inland terminals? Over-water transport is a commodity. Does it really matter if you go to Zim or Evergreen or Maersk? The quality of service is going to be there, the timing is going to be there, and the price is going to be about the same. It's become a commodity. So where can you compress the cost of the supply chain? Over land, no longer over water. The inland ports, dry ports or inland terminals, are the cornerstone to this strategy. I won't go into most of these because my friend Jose Luis already went through them, but I will say that these inland terminals require a substantial amount of land. Sometimes, especially on the rail side, where you're putting together tracks 800 meters in length, 10 of them. It's almost impossible to find that near a major gateway